As promised, I'm here on Monday night to talk about the second noble truth, which is desire is the root of all suffering. And somebody said on the Facebook page for this class that they're not sure they agree with that. So I said my goal, hopefully, is to change that person's mind. So the idea, the best I understand it, behind the second noble truth is wanting things leads to suffering. To grab a hold of that idea, the way I usually explain it is that when we want things to be different than they are, we suffer. And a lot of people take that as, oh, we should just be resigned to whatever is. But that's not what it really means. Jon Kabat-Zinn, who's, pretty big in mindfulness, and what comes from the second noble truth, acceptance, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, he says that acceptance is not resignation, right? Resignation is like, oh, well, I guess this is how it is, But acceptance is a more positive, or at least neutral, perception of what is. For example, right, it's been raining. I was at FIU earlier, and then I had to get here. There was 2 accidents I passed, at least 2 different accidents, that slowed traffic and made me late to my appointment. There's nothing I can do about any of that. In my head, I might start saying things like, oh, you should leave earlier, or maybe you have to end class earlier, or schedule people later. But then most days I'm here with a half hour to spare. So, how much time am I going to allow for there to be in between events, right? So, yeah, maybe there's a couple things I could do about it, but in all likelihood, I'm doing what I can. I have my schedule. It's not super packed where I only have this amount of time to get from here to there, and it's exactly that amount of time. I have leeway, but sometimes things come up, accidents come up, and you can't do anything about that. So you can sit in your car and be like, this sucks, this is horrible, I wish things were different, or whatever dialogue you have with yourself in your car about these things isn't helping, right? It's not changing anything. I think I always attribute it to the Dalai Lama, but I think recently I learned it was Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle says with any situation that's unpleasant, there's 3 things you can do. You can change it if it's within your power. You can leave it, or you can accept it. The only thing I could do was accept it. Accept that I was going to be late. Accept that it is what it is, right? And not be distraught about it. That's the idea of the second noble truth. So when there are things to do to change things, you should absolutely change them. If the change is going to be for the positive, you should absolutely do that. So acceptance is what comes from the second noble truth, right? That desire is the root of all suffering, and the solution to that, the solution is acceptance. And I'm huge on acceptance. Probably the topic I've written most about, other than mindfulness. Mindfulness is number 1 by a mile. Number 2, though, is probably acceptance. One of my favorite types of therapy is acceptance and commitment therapy. Acceptance is a big part of the 12-step program and addiction recovery, which I wrote about my first year writing for Psychology Today. I've written a couple of other things that I'm going to put on the Facebook Beginning to Become a Buddha class page. So I'll put 2 or 3 of the things I've written there that maybe help with this idea that if I can decrease, because you're not going to rid yourself of desire, but if I can decrease my desire, then I can be happier. Okay, then I will suffer less. And that's the point of it. So what I'd like you guys to do over the next 5 or 7 days, I guess, is to, there's a couple of sayings, right, that that relate to this. One that I wrote about, it's the title of one of my Psychology Today posts about acceptance, is called "It Is What It Is." And a lot of times when we say that, we say it in a very negative way, like, oh, it is what it is. But kind of framing that in a positive way, going with the flow of things, is an acceptance, not desirous mindset. So if you can just try to apply those sayings more and have more acceptance over the next 5 to 7 days, maybe write about it in the Facebook page, and I'll see you in a week or so.